All right, so Kyle, your shirt says when people forget God. I can't read the rest. What is that even talking about?
It says when people forget God, tyrants forge their chains.
Oh boy, that's not
Yeah.
good. That's a good one. Joey looking fresh.
Yeah, man,
Ready?
feeling fresh.
Yeah, got the new glasses too.
Yeah, that way you can see my eyes better.
Is the rain gone? Because you can see clearly now.
That's right, baby.
They bring out the color of your eyes.
Speaking of looking fresh, son, what you got going on there? Come on, come on.
Yeah,
What?
about
Yeah,
that.
I don't know what happened. I think I lost 5 years of my age.
Yeah.
Now I get no respect, no
No, you
beard.
didn't lose. You gained 5 years.
You are not allowed to just shave your beard without warning us first. That's
For those who are just joining us, this is Jonathan's cousin,
yeah.
James, and he'll be joining us tonight.
Nice.
I heard he's
Yep.
not as good, but he'll do his
Yeah,
best.
He's got a cool book though.
yeah.
It's Jonathan's favorite.
It all makes sense now.
There you
All right, so the weather's starting to get a little bit better out. Now we're in springtime.
go.
But I was thinking, all right, what would you guys rather have to deal with? Either like extreme hot or extreme cold. If you had to pick one for a week,
Hot.
which one would you rather pick?
Hot all day.
Oh boy, I'm a polar bear, man. I think I'm gonna have to go with cold.
Yeah. No, I think I got to go with cold too. You can layer up, you can get some coats and jackets and blankets. When you get to a certain hot, that's it. You're done.
I'm sorry. I'll go to the water.
Okay. Hey, sometimes the water's hot.
Yeah, when it's that hot, everything's warm.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't like the cold at all. At all. Now, if I'm indoors or if I'm trying to sleep, do I want it to be hot or cold? Cold for sure.
Mm.
Okay, so you're
Like,
telling
if
on
I'm
yourself a
too
little bit.
If I'm too hot, I can't sleep. But
So sounds like cold wins for you. No sleep for a week, apparently.
I know, right?
Now that's one of those hard questions. You always got to figure out. You're like, all right, so yeah, there's the
Wow.
temporary moments that are easier, but then okay, this is a whole week every day. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
no nighttime relief.
I'm ready for this weather we've been having to be over with because it'll be 90 degrees one day and then 50 the next. Like I can't. It's too much, man.
That does mess with you, but right now the pollen is ridiculous. So
Yeah.
that's messing with me more, my sinuses and everything else. So it's
Yep. Yeah, the
not a
pollen's not gonna
fan,
work.
man.
Everything's dirty all the time.
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of, I learned something new today.
It's about time.
I know, right? About some grasshoppers. Yeah, apparently in North Africa there is this species of grasshoppers that they do grasshopper things, right? They eat grass and
They hop over it.
yeah, they hop around. They're just normal grasshoppers, right? Nothing crazy.
So this is
However,
Kyle learning.
yep. But the rains come, the grass grows, grasshoppers start breeding. There's a lot more of them. They're starting to eat back the taller grass, and then they go through a drought. The grass dries up. Well, there's a switch that gets flipped inside these grasshoppers, and somehow they realize there's way too many of them, and then their bodies start changing. Like, not like over time, not over a period of time. Like each individual grasshopper starts changing. They start like metamorphing or whatever, transforming into something different.
Mhm.
Like their front arms start shrinking back, their back legs grow longer, like various parts of their bodies change, and they turn into the color changes, their head shape changes. They turn into a completely different creature, and then they start cannibalizing each other. And they start swarming and cannibalizing each other. They become locusts.
Hmm.
They go from crickets to locusts.
Oh.
How crazy is that? Like
You
the
mean
same
grasshoppers?
DNA and everything.
Grasshoppers to locust?
Yeah,
Okay.
grasshoppers to locusts.
I
You said,
got a
you said crickets.
question
I was just
though.
making sure.
Did I
I got
say crickets?
Mhm.
yeah.
No, that was just what the audience is doing right now. You know.
Well, you speaking of grasshopper, I was like, well, can they walk on rice paper and not leave a trail?
Mm,
Do you get the reference at all? Older people will.
I don't know, young grasshopper.
The television show Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Those grasshopper, you must walk on rice paper and not leave track. So that was part of his Kung Fu training. He had to walk across this rice paper at the beginning of the show. So it always showed that part. Yeah. David.
David Carradine. Is that
Yeah,
his
there
name?
you go, boy. Look at you reach back for that one, son.
Mm.
Jonathan don't know nothing about that at
Nope.
all.
Proud of it.
No, Kung Fu was happening for a while there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the show for sure. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I thought that was cool. I don't know what we can do with that information, but I mean, it sounds biblical. You know.
It very much could be.
If it
You
was
know?
ever on a trivia question, we would, hey, I got this. I got this.
Well,
Did you guys
specifically
hear?
being in North Africa, I don't know. It just kind of
Yeah, no, that's very. Well, that's just weird in general. The fact that God creates animals to do that.
right.
Well, think about a domestic pig. I've been told if they get released out into the wild, they'll turn into a boar, start growing the
Mm.
tusk, and their fur gets all wiry, and yeah,
Huh.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah.
Got to adapt.
It's like something inside an animal says, "Okay, now we don't have nobody feeding us anymore. Now we're gonna go rogue."
Yeah, they go from a football to a boar. It's a pigskin reference. Now, did you guys hear about the 23andMe that they filed for bankruptcy after all
What?
the debacle stuff going on?
Wait, what was the debacle?
Well, so they was talking about, capturing people's DNA and reporting it to different agencies. Some of them 3-letter,
Oh.
and then talking about buyouts and all this other information. And now all of a sudden they're going bankrupt. I just thought that was kind of interesting. The timing and the way things are going, and the way that everybody's trying to be tracked or be traceable. And now the company that was in charge of keeping your DNA safe has now been filed for bankruptcy, meaning someone could just buy it and then they don't have to agree to the original terms that you signed. I just thought that
Oh
was interesting.
wow. Hmm.
Yeah. So
So
they got
they're
stuff on
trying
file.
they're trying to legalize what they were doing illegally.
You
Essentially.
could say something like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's just stuff that makes you go,
Yeah. Wow. That was one of the reasons why I never really wanted to participate in any of those things. Like, I mean, yeah, it's interesting, but I've also heard a lot of people getting like false information, like several people sending in stuff at the same time from different areas, completely different everything about their features and everything else, and all of them get back a certain percentage of this and a certain percentage of that, and they're like, how is it that we are
Sure.
exactly the same?
Right. That just a little RNG, some random number generated.
Yeah.
3.2. Sure.
I don't know, man. I wish you could to trust those things. I don't know, but
Well, nowadays when you click agree to the terms, that could be almost anything. What was the one I was reading the other day talking about agree to the terms? The
the
liquid
end-user
death.
agreement.
What?
The water company.
Yeah, the water company. They had a thing where if you could go in there and you could either sign up to sell your soul to be
Wow.
part of this membership program they have, and it's like in a contract format, or you can pay $125,000 to also join the same subscription club or same group or whatever. So it was like, oh, your choice. You can either sell your soul on paper with like a real signature, or just pay a bunch of money. And I was like, stuff like that, even if it's a hoax or it's a game, it actually costs $125,000 no matter what. The fact that it even exists and those are options, that's crazy to me, the way things are playing out.
I don't know why, but I'm just almost nothing surprises me anymore. It's just
Facts.
That's wild. Well, I tell you what, I have heard of the theory or idea that these DNA places were secretly, there's a conspiracy behind this. Of course, everything has a thing behind it, but that there's this secret group of people that they're doing this for the sake of harvesting DNA so that they can hopefully come across the right DNA to be able to regenerate, like Nimrod or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah. Or bring people back to life and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, hey, science is cool, man. Let's keep doing that. I'm sure that's going to work out well.
All right.
Wow.
What could go wrong?
I don't see the problem.
Right.
All jokes, obviously.
Or you can just do it the old fashioned way and go trace your genealogy, go back and and there's people out there who are really, I had one done for me and about probably 4 years ago. And it says, according to this, I'm related all the way back to Henry VIII. So there you go.
Oh, yeah,
And that I am
mine.
also, yeah. And so and I've known this for a while on my grandfather's side, on my mom's side, being in Galloway, that we actually there's some castle over there, and that we are all related back to the bloodline through there, and Henry VIII. And then also I found out through this that I am linked to the Vikings. So I was like,
So
cool.
from Minnesota.
Yeah. Even though I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but yeah.
Purple and gold, baby.
Yeah.
Traitor.
Not. But yes, it was kind of neat. It was neat having that done and just seeing, instead of relying on someone to tell me through my DNA who I'm related back to, it was kind of neat for this person to go back and pull actual articles and files and newspaper clips. And I found out on my father's side, and I'm a pastor for those who may be watching this and don't know that. And I found out some really cool stuff, that there's a lineage of pastors on my father's side that goes way back, like hundreds of years, of a line of people in my family that have been pastors. And one of my great, I think it was 3 times back, great grandfathers, he had pastored his church for 50 years. He was a pastor there. So he probably pastored till the day he died. So it was interesting because I didn't know any of this. There's a lot of lost history for me through divorce and everything else. So this was all brand new to me. I had no idea that this was in my family. So it was really neat. And that's something that 23andMe would never be able to tell me. They could say, oh, well, according to this, you probably come from blah, blah, blah. And they'll give you the percentages. But to actually see and have a name and photographs and,
that's really cool,
people
man.
to connect with, I like that a lot better personally.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're all God's kids. So there you go.
You're really lucky,
whether
though.
you come from Minnesota or not, but so I don't know.
You're really lucky in that, man, because my my family tree on paper comes to a dead stop at a very specific location. I've had multiple people try to help me with that, and it just, I don't know, it just disappears. So, but that's kind of to be expected with what I understand my genealogy to be.
Right.
So
yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Half of my side doesn't go very far back.
Right.
But speaking of which, like when we look at that, like a lot of times we track our family history through like old family Bibles and current family Bibles. That's how they used to say who was married, who was born.
Right.
And what's interesting is the fact that those family Bibles are not a thing anymore. They're not only not a thing, they're not even existing anymore. We all have our own small pocket Bible, our own study Bible, and we keep it to ourselves. And everybody has not, if you're a believing house, you got like 10 Bibles in your house, and you got one in the car, one at the church, one in your back pocket, one on your phone. So, it kind of makes you wonder, like we used to kind of keep files on our own people. We used to know some stuff. We used to pass on history. Like we just don't do that anymore. We have social media could get turned off tomorrow, and all your pictures, all your dates, all your phone numbers, everything could just be gone.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes we got to remember the old ways, even though they're old and, antiquated, they're needed still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they were actually they are actually considered legal documents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like they are legally, lawfully recordings of your family history and who's who and all that stuff like that. That was equivalent of marriage certificates, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the family Bible was one of those things that got handed down to like the responsible child, that kind of thing. For that reason,
Right. Yep.
The
I mean,
functioning alcoholic child.
yeah, it was one of the reasons why house fires was just so devastating because
Yeah.
those types of things were the things that really really meant something
Mm-hmm.
at one time, and
Well,
now we don't have
not
those
only
same.
that, gentlemen, don't forget the church itself used to keep recordings of these as well.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Used to do a
Yeah.
lot better job of that. They would have a full book of, because a lot of times, back in the day, that's where you got buried. In your
Yep.
town,
Yep.
they had a church cemetery, so they
Married and
had
buried.
everyone listed that was buried, who was who, when they were married. I mean, they kept a very good log. And so that's another thing that's went the way of the dodo bird, over the last couple 100 years, I guess, or last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot less of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think we need to do a better job, because if something happened, and like you said, Jonathan, what if the cloud and everything else one day just went, and then it's like, I can't tell you how many people I've heard, because no one keeps photo albums anymore, like
Yeah.
actual photo albums. So I can't tell you how many people I've heard in the last about 5 years that said, "Oh, my phone was stolen or my phone crashed." Every picture I had of my child from the time they were born was all gone. They had it backed up nowhere.
Hmm.
And I know multiple people that's
Mm-hmm.
happened to. They're like, yeah, all these memories, everything I had, it literally was gone just like that.
Wow.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm, mm. Well, another thing that's gone. I'm so happy for this, man. I got something to share with y'all. So, have y'all heard about what the Idaho House passed a bill on
Nope.
like
Not
this
yet.
week? No?
No.
No, tell us about it. You got me yeah, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat right now.
Yeah,
Come on.
there's going to be some things that disappear. And, well, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm quite happy about this disappearing, or individuals
Oh, wait a
disappearing.
minute now. Is this going to be too hot for talk radio here? What you got, Cal?
I am going to have to use some language where you're going to have to
Some
figure out what I'm saying
discrepancy
here
here.
a little bit. But
Yeah.
Idaho unanimously passes a child SA
Mm-hmm.
death penalty bill.
Hmm.
So if you SA a child under the age of 12, Dunskies,
Wow.
chicken fried, buddy. Yep,
Mm.
unanimously. Like that's okie dokie in my book.
Yeah. Lines up with God.
Mm-hmm. Now they also put in place for over 12. They put in place some mandatory minimums as well,
Mm-hmm.
but still not quite the, But anyway, my opinion, that's a step in the very right direction. So, yay Idaho, good job on that, kiddos.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Other countries that use those very strict standards generally have less problems in
Mm-hmm.
those areas where those standards are enforced. People
Yep.
tend to think second or twice before they act incorrectly.
Right. Amazing. So yes, I like to see
That's awesome, man.
those
We
things
need
disappear.
more states to adopt that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Protect the
all
little
50
ones.
of them to adopt that.
Might be
I'd like
51.
I'd like to see. Yeah, I'd like to see that as a all 58 states right now. Have you seen
I'd like
those
to see all 75 of them, Bobby.
Well, apparently Canada's about to be another state, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is Greenland off the table? I mean, what's happening with that?
I
Yeah,
don't
that
know,
might
but
be a territory, if anything.
Trump says
Trump said he
that
wants it.
Canada's a number one contender right now. So
Oh, he said Canada is?
Mm-hmm.
now I don't know if he was being facetious or
I don't
just
know,
being
man.
No.
Trump,
He's
but
been pretty straightforward with his stuff lately.
yeah, yep, yep.
Yeah. check their numbers, check their economy. They're almost excited about it as America. They're like, well, they're like, we're tired of
Yeah,
paying these crazy prices and nothing's working up here, so switch it up.
Trump's over there like, Greenland, Canada, it's all the same. We're gonna get you. You're gonna be ours. It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, when he was talking about Greenland, he was like, he told him basically, I remember seeing the speech. He said, hey, you guys, y'all come together, talk about it. But if you want, literally said, if you want to come over and join with us strategically, he said that would be a great spot for America to, and then we would be, return would be a blessing to you.
Right.
So, I mean, hey.
Put your cards on the
think
table.
it'd be cool. Can you imagine? We get to go visit some places without having to have a passport anymore. That'd be cool.
This a real ID.
Oh my goodness.
Well, one more thing about Trump. So, and this is probably really relevant for our listeners, especially. But Trump is apparently trying to get approved a $10,000 per child tax credit. For individuals that for parents who homeschool their children. That's really cool, especially when you take into consideration the options that are available now with like homeschool co-ops and stuff. So the parents can still go to work and work their jobs and things like that. If it's a whether it's a single parent or if it's a 2-income household where both parents are gone away working, they have co-ops that are available where you can still send your kids to school. They're going to get a better education. Right. And it's going to be tailored towards them. There's all kind of cool stuff about co-ops and homeschooling or whatever, but the fact that they can get the parents are able to get like a $10,000 per child tax break, like that's phenomenal. That literally pays for
huge.
It's
very
huge. It literally pays for like if somebody sent their child to a co-op to go take care of everything. Right. So school's paid for that way. Like that's really, really awesome. So, hopefully that comes to fruition.
Yeah. Put some more options on the table. Even if you don't want it or you don't choose it, you should be able to have the option to do so.
Right.
And your money's already going to, when you're paying your property taxes and whatnot, you're already paying for public school. If your kid's not going there, your money's going to somebody else.
Right.
So you should have an option where your money goes in specific areas like that. Obviously the road's for everybody, but your schooling is for your specific child.
Right.
So it makes sense.
Very cool. I'm not one of these that's going to push a political agenda, but I do see some things that's happening that's pretty cool. Some things that's not so cool, but during this administration, there's been some pretty good things happening. I'm enjoying seeing some of these things happen. So just keep praying for our country,
That's right.
Well, guys, welcome to Super Canon Plus. Thanks for joining us. We do this each and every week, and we appreciate you joining us. We get to get on here and have a good time and chit-chat about some of the topics of the day and how it relates to biblical things and our lives and how it affects us, all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah, we get on here and have a good time. So, appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely.
Boys, what you got on your mind this week?
I want to talk about something, and it's a subject that's happening right now, and it's called Lent. And I'm not talking about what you find on your belly button every day, okay?
I was hoping you'd say pocket, but okay.
Yeah. So, I just want to be very specific when we're speaking about something. Somebody might go, yeah, I got some right here for you. Got some Lent right here. No, we're not talking about the type of Lent. We're talking about people who are religiously celebrating something called Lent. You guys have any idea or any thoughts on that or what that is?
I mean, I know they smear ashes on their head in the shape of an X or a cross or something like that or whatever.
Well, it's not an X.
You sure about that?
Some X, yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
That, and then what? Don't you normally have to like do like a fast or a give up something for a time period?
Yeah.
I'm giving up chocolate.
Yeah.
You don't eat
Or
chocolate anyway. Oh, no, it makes it easy.
I think I also saw like that you would eat fish. Like that's like a thing to do during that time is eat fish.
Yeah,
Okay.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, stuff I've been trying to remember. Been trying.
So anyway, so
So,
a lot of this is connected back to the time of what a lot of churches will be celebrating here in the next month or so, Easter,
Mm.
and so it's all connecting all back to this. And so I was like, you know what exactly? Because I've seen in my past, I've seen people in public, even when I was with a delivery company many years ago, and I walked into a medical office, and the guy who was running the place, he had something on his forehead, and I literally looked up at him and said, "Man, you got something up here, right?" And you got,
you got a little schmutz,
you got a little like that. And he just kind of smiled, and
You've been working on cars all day?
yeah, he just kind of smiled at me like he thought I was kidding, but I wasn't. But I was like, "Well, okay." I just walked out. It's like made my delivery, got my signature. I was like, "Well, that's on you, bro. You don't walk around with stuff on your forehead all day." And then I remember hearing something. This is probably 10 years ago. And I remember hearing something about the Lent. And I'd always heard about Lent, but that was the first time I actually saw someone wearing the ash on their forehead. And I was like, well, what's this about? And so, kind of going in there and looking it up and looking into it, it kind of leads you into, with the whole 40 days, is leading you into the story of Tammuz. Are
Mm.
you guys familiar with Tammuz at all in the Bible?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe it's in Ezekiel. Let me see. I might have it in my notes right here. Let me look real quick.
Oh,
Do I
not you
have that in my
cheating.
notes? Or I had it somewhere. That it was in Ezekiel. Let me see. Maybe it's in here. Because I think he's only mentioned one time, I believe, in the canon. Let's see. Yeah, so it's going to be Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 14.
That's right.
And it says, in my notes here, it says the Bible mentions Tammuz only once in Ezekiel 8:14, where the prophet sees women weeping for him, a practice associated with a Babylonian god and an act of idolatry. Let's see if we actually read Ezekiel 8:14. It says, "Then he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the Lord's house." And this is the thing about it, guys. This is in the temple.
Yeah.
That this isn't like some random spot somewhere out there. So it says that then he brought me to the entrance of, this is Ezekiel, of the north gate of the Lord's house, and there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz.
Mm.
So I was like, wow. And it just made me think a little bit about, because all of this, if you start connecting the dots on this, you get from Lent, Tammuz, and all these different things, and all of a sudden now it's incorporated into Easter, which Easter, to me personally, I know that there's people out there who have studied it, and unfortunately, I say unfortunately, a lot of people will say, well, Easter's not pagan, Easter's, but I'll be honest with you, there's this thing that God talks about in the Bible about blending, and I'm just not a part of that. Now, I don't mind blending together ingredients to make a cake or spices, for a brisket or whatever, blending all that together. I'm cool with that.
Let's do a
But when
brisket.
we start taking things that aren't prescribed by our Heavenly Father, I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm just, because we can argue the point of that being, oh, this isn't pagan. Oh, they really mean this. But I'm like, what is the purpose of it at the end of the day is what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And is it a way that God prescribed for us to worship him or to honor him? And I'd have to say no. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I wondered, like, because I kind of had a similar experience to you, Joe, when I was out in the world, living my life, and I saw somebody with ash on their forehead, and again, ignorant to the conversation, never seen anybody out in public do that. I thought it was just something you do at church, and then you like kind of left it at church. I didn't know that it was like a walk around thing. And so I was like, "Hey, buddy, you got something on your forehead?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I know." I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like stepping all over your religious practices. I didn't mean to do that." But and like Pastor Joe just said, later in life, I kind of was like, that was the only time it ever happened. Maybe I should look into it. And so I looked into it a little bit, and then the conversation started getting a little funny online. They're like, "Wait, is the T for a cross or is the T for Tammuz?" And I was like, "Uh oh, that could get real bad real fast." And I was like, "Oh boy." So I don't know. What about you, Kyle?
I don't know, man. I don't know what I can say that's not going to be probably super offensive, to be honest with you. Not a fan. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some pagan stuff in there, and you're not going to find any of this information anywhere in Scripture that we're to do anything along the lines of this whatsoever. I did kind of a quick little search while you were chatting there, Joe, and saw that apparently this is just part of the catechism, part of the Catholic rites type stuff,
Oh.
and we know that that's rooted in all kind of mixed in with pagan stuff and whatnot. And I think personally, it's just why,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Why?
just why,
Yeah.
do the people that do this stuff even know why they're doing what they're doing?
Supposed to. That's why.
Yeah.
Here, put some smudge. What are they burning to create this ash?
That's the question I wondered. I was like, where's this coming from?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I wonder if they are, I think I think I got it figured out. Here's what they do. They pass the offering plate all year long. And, people are reaching in their pockets and they're grabbing money. They pull out Lent. They collect it all year long.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And they burn that and they use the ash to smear on their head.
No.
No?
Ass.
No.
Well,
No.
what do you think about like the verses where they talk about, like they cover themselves in sackcloth and ash or whatever? Do you think they could be trying to go back to something like that? Maybe. I mean, I'm trying to give like the hugest, which isn't a word, benefit of a doubt, and say, maybe they're trying to go back to
Look it
like
up.
the, when you're in mourning or whatever and cover yourself with ash. Maybe.
I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I mean,
Well, call me Armstrong.
sure. Let's well, not a stretch for you. I think that's a stretch for them. I think that if that's their claim, I think that that's a big time stretch, culturally it just isn't the same, maybe it signifies that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. Like what does the name Lent even mean?
I think it's spelled different, right? With like Lent.
Yeah, it
Lent.
is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we lending somebody something like, what like, like I mean, let's look that up real quick. What does that mean? Let's see.
Well, while you do that, I think it's interesting, just like the timing of it. There's some other things that come into play around the Christmas time. We've got about a 9-month period from Easter Lent time to Christmas time. And so there's some other details that kind of play a factor into there. But I just thought it was interesting that, okay, yeah, you're doing something and you just like, why does it have to be specifically like, when did this get established? I guess that's the big question. There's no Bible verse or nothing that you can go and find that's like, hey, make sure during the spring, after the full moon of the whatever, you celebrate Lent. You know what I mean? So you had to have made up the date, the time, the event, the process, and the actions. And that's a one too many for me. I mean, you can make up 6 out of 7, but not 7 out of 7.
Right. I agree with you, Jonathan. I think there's too much going on that's not prescribed at all by our Heavenly Father.
Mm.
So I was like, yeah. Like I said, I think when we start going all these different avenues, and we start claiming like, oh, we're doing this to honor this, and we're doing this to honor that, and it's like, yeah,
Okay.
not a fan. What you got, Kyle?
All right, so this is the most boring answer. Like I thought there was going to be some real big, Catholic conspiracy reason, something to really dig into. No, it's stupid. The word Lent originates from the Old English word. I'm gonna not pronounce this correctly. Lenston, Lencten, meaning spring season or lengthening of days, reflecting the time of year it occurs in preparation for Easter.
Yeah.
That's all it means. So spring season. So they celebrate Lent from Ash Wednesday to Easter Sunday. Now I'm curious about the whole Ash Wednesday thing. Like, what is that? I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff about Easter, but like, what do you guys know about Ash Wednesday and its significance and purpose and all that?
I have no idea.
Other than that's the first day that you start smudging ashes on your forehead.
It's a type of wood. That's all I got for you.
Well, what's a little bit interesting about that, Caldo, is the fact that we know that Messiah didn't go into the grave on Friday night and pop out on Sunday morning. And you go back and read your Bible. And so I wonder if there's something to that if they're doing it on Ash Wednesday, knowing that he went into the grave that Wednesday, according to the biblical calendar. And so I wonder if there's a little bit of blending and mixing of, there's a little bit of truths in there, because who knows? I don't know for sure, but
You're just
like
saying the day of the week that they're using for
right,
that?
because they're picking Wednesday, and that
Yeah.
would have been the time that Messiah went in, he was crucified and then went into the grave. So
Not literally 40 days prior, but
no.
just the 3, or just the Wednesday day of the week kind of thing.
Right.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if we all grew up like celebrating and participating, if we'd have like a huge knowledge base, or if it is just kind of this is a part of our practices and this is what we do. Like there's a lot of stuff in every religious practice or every business practice or even in your home. Like, why do you do this? I don't know. That's just how we always did it. And people have no idea why they're even are completing a task anymore. It's just monkey see, monkey do type of thing.
I will say this, they part of the practice of Lent is, some type of fasting. Right now, depending, I guess it's how strict your specific church is. I don't know, but I think you can pretty much fast with anything. Like you can give up coffee for 40 days, or I don't think it's necessarily that you have to, or that it even has to be food. Like it's
I
just,
will give up tapioca pudding for 40 days.
I will give that up permanently.
I know, right?
Have it.
Just pick something you got. I will give up spinach, boiled spinach for 40 days. That's so hard.
I'm giving up all manual labor for 40 days.
There you go.
So I guess there, there is something behind it that seems to have some kind of good significance to it. I just wish people knew why they were doing what they're doing, not just because it's a tradition or something that they're supposed to follow. But apparently, they're during that time they're also supposed to be serving by giving alms and things like that. So doing for others, kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, and they abstain from meat on Friday, so that there's the fish thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so weird, man. When you tie all these practices in, it just comes right out of stinking pagan Babylonian mess. It's just it's wild.
Well, I mean, think about this. Speaking about pagan and Babylonian stuff, and just all right. Here's the deal. So Easter's been around a long time, celebrated in church, right? And so, what is the meal, the biggest part of the meal of most people's Easter dinner that they're going to eat?
Oh, you got to have that Easter ham.
Gotta have the Easter ham, bro.
And it's got to be spiraled.
Oh,
honey
spiral!
baked.
If it ain't spiral, it's not
Pineapples.
Count. Oh yeah,
all the stuff, juice in the bottom.
And if it is not honey baked ham, you're just cheap. Okay,
Yeah.
you're cheap. But think about that though. The most, I would say, the most unclean animal in the world that you could possibly eat, and we're going to connect this with the Messiah's resurrection,
right?
I mean, come on, man.
The one thing he would have never eaten.
Right, the one thing that would have never been on the buffet menu whatsoever. And all about, we're just going to have our Easter ham and celebrate Jesus' resurrection. I'm like, did you ask him about it? Did you ask Jesus about this?
Jesus thought,
I'm thinking brisket might be more in line here, and some lamb and stuff like that. But my God, you picked the most unclean animal in the world to celebrate the resurrection of the Messiah. But I was like, I think it's just hilarious.
Jesus picked the pigs to send demons into. No, he didn't pick them, but he
No.
allowed that to happen,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. He's
Like-
like, well, you're unclean and you're unclean, so how about it? There you go.
Yeah, this is an okay vessel for a demon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you want to eat that? Okay.
One of the other references was with the prodigal son. He's like, when I've got to my lowest of my low, when the world is the absolute worst. We're talking
Right.
he's like, out of all the things in the world, what am I doing? I'm eating and living with pigs. Oh, I wonder why that's considered the lowest of the low. He's like, out of everything in my life, this is the pinnacle, this is the bottom. The bottom has not fallen out. I'm in here with pigs.
Yeah.
And we're like, no,
You're
that should
eating the
be
slop that the pigs are eating. That's what you're yeah.
yeah.
Oh boy.
Tough
I just
city.
think it's I really I wish people of the faith, Christians would step back and go, this doesn't work. This isn't a good thing. It's like with Hanukkah here in where I live at, where me and Jonathan live. They have every year they do Hanukkah on the square in downtown Charleston, and I think it's hilarious. They have a Hanukkah celebration that's sponsored by a local grocery store called Piggly Wiggly. So they have a pig mascot. And this is what I've been told. I don't think I saw this one that
That's
time we were
funny.
downtown, but he actually has what is it called, the lock? Is it called the locks or something like that
Yeah,
that
I forgot
some
the
of the
name.
Jewish guys will wear?
The
The
long
curly
curly
hair,
cues on the
yeah.
side of their head.
Yeah. So they have
A pig
Hanukkah in
with
the square.
those? That's
Hanukkah
hilarious.
in the square, sponsored by Piggly Wiggly, and the pig mascot is out there, and they got a Christmas tree out there next to a Hanukkah.
Just
I'm
mix
like
them all
going,
up.
I don't know how
I
much
mean,
more blending you want to do, bro. That's like this is getting off the chain, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got which we don't. I don't personally celebrate Hanukkah. I know my boys here don't either, but but I just think it's hilarious. You go down there and it's a Jewish celebration, and your mascot's a pig.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't know
wow.
what to tell you, man. I was like,
Well, Joe, what that comes from is that's it's called a lack of knowledge, right? We got a Bible verse
right,
warning about that. When it comes to Easter, like you were talking about with the ham, well, if you had knowledge of the Bible calling it abomination, you would just not do it anyway. But then, like, especially not on like a holiday that you made up. Because again, let's really like take a step back,
right.
right? We just said Easter as if it's just a thing. Flip through every page in your Bible and show me the word Easter, unless you find the King James where it's mistakenly translated one
Yeah.
time. One time.
One
But
time,
Right.
you get rid of that, there is no such thing. So then it's a made up holiday, unfortunate, and I'm trying to be nice.
Right.
And then you're eating a animal that says it's unclean and abomination. So now
yes,
you've like double, triple, quadrupled down on like, you haven't followed any religious practice, but you have a religious day. So then, like, kind of who are you serving? And I
Right.
know, we've just thinking out loud. One day I said, why is Easter all over the place? Every year growing up, it was on this day or this day, this month, that month. I was like,
Oh,
how?
not and wait a minute, Jonathan. Not only that, but during the time of Easter, I remember every year, we didn't even go to church, but my mom would still buy us Easter outfits. Like we get these new shoes. I remember being a little boy, and we got the really white shoes and the pastel colors and all that stuff. Like my
Mm,
mom was big into. We would dress the part. Now we didn't go to
right.
church to celebrate Easter, but my mom bought us the baskets and everything else, the Easter
Hmm.
baskets. But think about that culturally, clothes back in when I was a young guy. That was stay. Did you get your Easter outfit yet? Or look at your Easter outfit. Aren't you so cute? I'm like,
Right.
yeah, we're going full pegging here. We're going from the outfit to the pork, everything, man.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I was looking through just some stuff, and I was like, okay, hold on, why is this all over the place on the calendar? Well, come to find out that there is a rhyme and a reason. Not that they were just picking a date, like the third Tuesday of the year or something like that. No, it's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox. So this was a
Mm.
very specific, intentional date that was picked a long time
Mm.
ago that has no biblical reference or precedent. So then, like, all your building blocks to make a holiday or a religious day aren't there.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then the worst to me, and Kyle, I'm gonna let you hit up on this one. The worst to me is like then you go and you have a sunrise service on a Sunday after using the moon to count your calendar. I'm like, something inside
Yeah.
me says, I don't understand what's happening here. Once you have eyes to see, you can't unsee this stuff.
I
Right.
think Yeshua has left the house at that point.
Yeah. If all of these things are that specific and there's no biblical precedence, you have to ask, Where's
why?
it coming from?
Yeah,
Where are you
why?
getting it? You
Mhm.
know, you didn't just pick a random thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All the lights have to be red between here and Charleston for us to celebrate that. No, you know.
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like
That's crazy,
that's
man. I'm telling you. And I think it goes back to what you guys were saying earlier. It's like, have you ever asked yourself why?
Mm.
Like, why? I mean, that's an important question to me, guys. You know, when we do things, I want to know, why do we do what we do? That's
Yeah.
all.
all right. I got to tell you a story. So it goes like this. Maybe you've heard the story before or whatever, but girl gets married, and her and her husband are celebrating their first official holiday together. Pick one, it don't matter, right? All the American holidays have ham included, right? So um, they're celebrating their first holiday together, and she's got this big ham, humongous, and she goes and she takes a big humongous knife and cuts off about 4 inches of it,
Mm.
Yep.
and then she sticks it in the oven. Y'all have heard the story?
Oh,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
heard it multiple
Okay, well, I'm gonna
times.
tell it for the listeners out there. So she cuts off the front 4 inches of this ham, sticks it in the oven and cooks it. And her husband just kind of looks at her and is like, he has to ask her, you know, what are you doing? Why'd you cut the 4 inches of the ham off? And she says, well, you know, that's how you cook it. And he's like, uh, no. Why? What do you mean? Like, explain. She's like, well, it's just the way we've always cooked it. And he said, who do you mean we? He's like, well, my mom cuts the first 4 inches off. I don't know why she does it. That's just the way she does it. And her ham's always good. He's like, all right, well, I got to get to the bottom of this. Let's call mom. So she calls mom and says, Mom, you know, I just cut the first 4 inches of the ham off and put it in
Mm.
the oven. He asked me why. I told him I don't know why. So I had to call you. And she said, well, you know, come to think of it, I don't know why I do it. I do it because grandma does it. So let's call grandma. So they call grandma and they ask grandma, you know, Grandma, I cut the 4 inches off the ham. Mom cuts 4 inches off the ham. She says she learned it from you. Why do we do this? Grandma starts cracking up laughing. And she says, honey, I did that because I had a smaller oven. So I would have to cut off a little bit of the ham so it would fit inside there to cook it. So I guess the story serves the purpose. Why do you do what you do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, if it does it make sense why you are doing what you're doing, or is it just a silly tradition?
Yeah.
Or is it a tradition that maybe isn't so silly and has very specific intentional reasons why things are done the way that they're done? You
Yep.
might want to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, how
What
about
you're
this
doing.
one? Where does the name Easter come from?
Mm.
What's the roots
Island.
of that?
Easter Island. Ooh,
Oh,
Easter Island.
there is an Easter Island.
There is an Easter Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's
from a
also Christmas Island.
there is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from a religious aspect, there was a day or a deity called Ishtar, and that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
where like that name, if you mix a letter and change a vowel, you're right there. That's a dead ringer. So, there's some interesting correlations, with all the events that are going around in the springtime. With hey, how did we get to Tammuz? How did we get to Easter? How are all these things playing a factor together? Well, what's Easter? What's Ishtar got to do with it? Just do yourself a little Google one day, and then see if those two names have any correlation, and you might find a thing or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Now, I will tell you boys this. When you start doing searches now on certain search engines and you start looking this up,
that's true.
they will take you and they will like, oh,
Oh
this
boy.
absolutely has nothing to do with this.
Right.
And so I've run into it a lot where we used to go and research this and get all the information we needed. And now when you research it, oh, this absolutely has nothing to do with that. And it's this and this. And it really is trying to divert people's attention away from it.
Right.
So just be careful. Like when you're out there searching for it, it might tell you, oh, no, this is church practice. And this is, basically make it sound like it's all godly and everything else. And,
Just
the
look for the
whole
Bible
thing.
verse.
Yeah, the whole thing for Lent is the 40 days Jesus went into the wilderness, and So we're pretending we're doing that, and that's why we're giving up something. I'm going, yeah, but said the Bible never?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, said the Bible never. I mean, I get it, and I know a lot of good people out there who do it, that are doing it from a good place in their heart, or saying, hey, and they're truly giving up something that they like, and not boiled spinach and tapioca pudding. But at the same time, it's like, I've heard a phrase: "The road to hell is paved with good intentions."
Yeah.
And so that's where, as a people, we're, hey, Kyle, we just need to. I think we need to do better. That's all.
Yeah.
We gotta
Right.
do better. Gotta do better. That's all.
Well, and we look at that process and we say, okay, so if that's the case, what's the replacement? But I challenge you to say,
Is there a
maybe
replacement, Jonathan?
no. Actually, what I
What?
would say is, don't look for a replacement. Look for the original. I believe that Easter happens to
Right.
be the replacement. I think if
There
we
you
could go
go.
back one level deeper and see, something about what you guys were talking about earlier. It's about Lent as meaning spring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's another thing that happens in the spring that's clearly laid out with many, 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 many plus a couple more many references to Passover. Same time, same kind of events, but in the spring and laid out clearly throughout the biblical narrative from pretty early on all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of trying to replace
If
it,
you
go
could have
back
threw
to the
some more
origin.
clearlies in there, that would be awesome. Clearly.
Yeah. We got to know why we're doing what we're doing. It's a shame, and they don't make it easy. They, right? We're always talking about the
Yeah.
behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
They don't make things easy on us when we do try to find the truth. Because I
Right.
mean, you can find information about pagan stuff out there online,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's going to be mixed in with there's good information that's real information to be found, but there's also so much fake information out there too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distortion of that. Trust me, it's bad enough, the pagan stuff that's mixed into what we have as a culture. You don't have to go making stuff up to make it seem worse. It's bad enough.
Right. Oh,
And then of
speaking
course
of,
we have history hidden and all that.
yeah. Speaking of, I saw a magazine the other day, a magazine cover, and it's a lady. She's pretty. She's wearing a little flower crown or whatever. She has a basket with eggs in it, and she's holding a little white bunny rabbit right here. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's kind of nice. And I look at the top of the magazine cover, and it's Wicca magazine. And I was like,
Wow. Mhm.
where have I seen this before? Basket of eggs and the bunny rabbit. Oh, that's where
Yeah.
so they're telling you what they're telling you without telling you that they're telling you. And like Joe said, you have to be careful what you search because you end up on a new age website quick talking about
Yep.
crystals
Yeah.
and moon cycles.
Yep.
And you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, wait, what?
Well, the people who practice Wicca, they they get pretty upset about that every year, like
Mm-hmm.
about the Christians who steal their holidays.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, Easter and Christmas, like they're offended that Christians participate in their holidays,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and they're
uh,
accurate.
what I was gonna say is, what's crazy is they get it. They actually get it. They're like going,
Yeah.
they know the difference between what they're doing, and they're questioning why a Christian is doing it.
Right.
Where the average Christian is not questioning anything. Oh, so we're gonna, bunny rabbits, baskets, eggs, spring, renewal. Oh yeah, it's all about Jesus. I'm like going, and the pagans over there going,
Right.
they actually understand it better than the person calling himself a Christian is. That's the
Mm-hmm.
scary part.
So who's more deceived, the person who's intentionally doing these practices, or the person who doesn't know that they're doing practices that are
Yeah, boy.
not so good?
Well, you
Yeah.
got the person over there. They're like, hey, we dyed our eggs red. How did you dye your eggs red? Because if we did it the same way, you don't want to do this anymore.
No,
Right.
not at all.
Right. Mm.
Yeah, leave that one there.
Yeah, we'll leave
Yeah,
that
boy.
one there. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe if we adopt some of those that Idaho bill that got passed, maybe we can end all that. Maybe we
Yeah.
can end Easter.
Oh boy. Oh
No,
boy.
no.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Oh man. So what are you guys doing for Passover this year? Because I know y'all aren't going to be celebrating Easter and all that kind of good stuff. Y'all got plans at the
Oh,
house?
oh yeah. Now I've already made my trip out to Costco.
Me
Got
too.
some of the finest Australian lamb from Australia, I think. I wasn't there when
Is
it
that
was
where
butchered.
Australian lamb comes from?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just make my best guess,
No.
but I'm gonna try
Technically,
to.
they could ship the lamb over here, raise it, go, it's Australian, mate.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, give
Now,
it an
do they
accent.
are y'all just getting like just lamb shake like small portions, or is this
Yeah.
like
I
a
don't
really
know.
big thing, or what
Well,
is it?
mine's almost 9 pounds that I got from Costco. So
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah, same. Yeah, mine's a boneless leg, and because I obviously I don't want to end up with too much and then having to get rid of it or try to have leftovers or whatever and have anything weird going on there. So enough to get on the smoker and get it all cooked up right,
yeah,
and have a good time with the intimate scenario with the family and cover some scripture and talk about what's going on for Passover and why Yeshua says, hey, we're going to do this again together one day. So it must be
yeah,
something important if he says, let's do it again, let's run this
Right.
back.
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
we're
same.
practicing for the meal we're gonna have with him when he comes back, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
he's
Yeah,
preparing some kind of table. Might be Passover.
I mean, he
yep.
did tell us he was not gonna drink that again until he
Hmm.
does it with us.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
You think
yeah.
they got smokers are going to be in the new heavenly Jerusalem?
They will definitely be fire roasted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking some Texas grills in there and just oh yeah,
It's like we always wonder where all that gopher wood went from the ark. It was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we've been seasoning this.
oh yeah,
I definitely want to get I want to get some recipes. Joe, I know I've heard you got a pretty good one.
yeah,
Because I mean, depending on how you prepare it, it's either going to be good or it's going to be not so good.
Mm.
I know I've prepared it one year and it just the first year I did it, I did a great job. The second year, oh, not good. No
What'd you
bueno.
do?
Wrapped it in socks.
Might as well have. Um, I don't know. I
Mm,
tried a recipe that I had found online and it looked like it would be good, but it was not. It was
right.
not. So
Well,
anyway,
lamb is one of them things. I think you either
You.
you hit it or you
you
don't,
either
man. It's like
nail it.
it's either you're going to get it right or it's not like cooking beef where you can kind of like throw some sauce on there, a little extra A1 to take care of
Mm-mm,
whatever you did. But
mm-mm.
I will say we've been having lamb for our Passover for what, Jonathan? This will be the third or fourth, right?
Should be third year, I think. Or
Third year.
it
Okay.
might be fourth, but for sure third.
Actually, I think it might be the fourth year now. And I did lamb chops 2 years in a row. And
But you
then, yeah,
said,
that's right. Because 2 years in a row, I did lamb chops. And then last year, I did the bone in leg. So I wanted to be more spiritual than Jonathan with his boneless.
Mhm.
And, but this year, both of us have the same thing. So, but anyway, I'm kidding. But yeah, I look forward to the smoker is absolutely awesome for this type of meal for me. And I've had people tell me who don't like lamb, and it's not one of and lamb is one of those meats. I think you like it or you don't like it, who's preparing
yeah,
it, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I've had multiple people tell me that, hey, I don't typically like lamb, but the way you prepared it,
right.
I like it. I was like, okay, that's what I want to hear. So
Yeah, that's why I want to try your recipe, man, because I wanna nail it this year. But
yeah,
now you said you guys have only been doing the lamb for the past 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So I know y'all been keeping feast longer than that. What were y'all doing before? Were y'all doing the Seder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was big into I know, disappointment all over my face. Um, No, it's one of those things where when we all start off and we all are on our journey, what we're learning, and
Yep.
what's the first thing we do is, hey, I want to do what God says, and it's written all over the Bible, like I said, front to back. So how do I do this lamb and Passover situation? And so you go to Google, and you say, hey, Passover instructions, and they say, buy this Frisbee plate with a bunch of holes in it and put a bunch of ingredients in it that don't make a lot of sense. But then there's a story behind each ingredient. And you're like, oh, okay. So it's about the story. So then, wow, ancient Hebrews had a really cool story to go along with their meal. This is amazing. Wow. The tears and the bitter herbs and the mortar. Oh my gosh. The connections are amazing. Then I start reading through the Bible because, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go double check and see, hey,
Shame on you.
why do we do stuff? And I'm just a flipping away. I mean, my pages are burning, not literally. And as I'm like, through the whole Passover story, I was like, all right, maybe it was the next Passover story, the next time it came around.
Yeah.
No. All right. Maybe it was the New Testament, still flipping. And I
Yeah.
have not found a plate, nothing that sounded anything similar to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what does it do? It leads one to question. So that was
Right.
my start on that. What about you, Joe?
And speaking of flipping, the only thing that was flipping in the New Testament was Yeshua flipping tables, man. He's like, that's enough. Yeah, same thing. 4 years ago, roughly 4 years ago, we went into a study. I did a teaching on symposium, and yeah, I mean, and through that, you realize that, again, this is why we say, why do we do what we do?
That's
Mhm.
right.
And then when you find out why you're doing what you're doing, it's kind of like, wait a minute now. It's like, 'cause I'm like questioning, why is there a spot on the Seder plate for a boiled egg?
Ooh.
Thinking
Yeah.
about, I'm doing the one like, what? And so even when we did the traditional Seder, I was like, I'm not doing a boiled egg. That's just
Yeah.
too close to something else. And so then, once we researched about the symposium, I was like, you know what? I think it's time to go back. Like Jonathan said, go back to the Bible. And it's real simple, you know, what we need to do, the elements that you need for it. And I was like, hey, you know what? I think the Father's wanting to bring us back around. He's like, hey, just take all that stuff out the way. Now look at me and what I'm telling you, what I require of you.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's you have a meal, like you said, with your family. You sit down. My kids are grown, but now I have grandbabies. You guys know that. And so now we get to tell the stories of the Exodus and how God led his people out with a mighty strong hand. And this is why, and here's the thing. When you say, why do we do what we do? God already told you. He says, and when the children ask,
Right.
Father, why do we do this every year, Father? Then you can sit down with your child and go, because this is what our Heavenly Father, our Abba, did for our ancient ancestors a long time ago. And
Right.
so we're honoring to our Heavenly Father for what he did. Oh, okay. And that's your answer to your tradition.
That's real easy.
Yeah, real easy, because God said so. Our Heavenly
Right.
Father said, hey, do these things.
Page
Yeshua says,
95.
do these things in remembrance of me. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
real easy, because now we know, and knowing's half the battle.
Mm-mm-mm.
And it's
All right,
ordained forever.
I was waiting for Rihanna to go, G.I. Joe.
What about you, Kyle? What did you do prior to everything in your brain?
Prior to keeping Passover, according to the Bible, we did Easter. Like
Hmm.
we never did the Seder thing.
So you had a full
Oh,
switch.
wow.
Yep.
Nice.
Just simply because like we heard, after we kind of heard about the Jewish stuff after we had already started doing the biblical stuff.
Hmm.
And part of me was like, okay, well, I guess this is part of the process and people are going to be keeping this tradition. So, we probably need to do it that way to kind of be a part of what everybody else is doing. But the more I looked at it, it's just like, none of this really makes any sense to do any of this stuff. And so no, we didn't. I think the most we ever did extra is I made like some matzo ball soup one year that we had with our Passover meal.
Yeah.
But
Did
it
it
was
turn out
just
good?
oh
Do you remember?
yeah, the soup was good. Yeah,
Yeah, the soup was good, huh? You liked the soup, huh?
it was good soup. But you killing me, bro.
Super Cannon
Plus. But no, I mean that was it, and yeah, we've just kind of done it the biblical way since we started doing Passover. Best we knew how, anyway. Um, a lot of years we didn't cook our own. A buddy of mine has a restaurant and he sells lamb, so I'd call him up. Hey, need to order some lamb,
Nice.
and we would get our you order a meal, so we get mashed potatoes and asparagus with it, and we just put the mashed potatoes and the asparagus to the side, and we'd have our Passover meal, and then we'd have other stuff as well, So
Gotcha. Well, and I thought that
um,
was something that was interesting about the Seder plate was you have all these elements, but none of it's like food. So then, like, we talk about
right,
when we read Passover, like with Yeshua, for instance, he says, "Hey, disciples, go get the lamb, which is meat and food, and prepare a table where he had bread and wine and other items, including said lamb that they got and prepared." So we know for 100% sure they had lamb and bread and wine. We know that.
Well,
Those are
Jonathan,
detail facts.
real quick, because I believe we know 100% for sure that Yeshua was actually having a Passover meal and not what we quote unquote been told all of our lives. It was his Last Supper.
Hmm.
Like before he died on the cross, this is the last meal he had.
Right.
Well, that was a very important meal that our Messiah had
Right.
going, to the events leading afterward. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I
Yeah.
thought it was important to say that too many times people, and even people try now, oh no, that was just he wasn't having a Passover meal. He was just, they were just having regular dinner. Oh, so he had a place at, at the end or wherever the place was
Yeah.
reserved ahead of time just for a special meal. Okay, cool.
Yeah. They got McDonald's catered.
Yeah,
I don't see how people
chicken
can
nuggets,
confuse that.
man. What can go wrong?
I don't see how people can confuse that. He literally says, "Go get the stuff so we can have a Passover meal."
Right.
Yes,
Like it's literally worded
Yeah.
that's what it is.
yes, and all four
Sorry.
gospels.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of is interesting is they said they had a Passover meal. Meal in means you eat and are full, happy, good, you enjoyed yourself. So when you have a Passover Seder situation, you have like that going on, then you have to like have a pause, stop, now regular food. And then you eat the meal. So then now you have Passover Seder, comma dash slash dot 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 dinner, right? Those are like two separate events, and that was one of the things that always kind of confused me. I was like, why do I have to make two different things? And like, then what's the purpose of the first thing? Because it doesn't even line up with anything I can find in scripture. So it just got real awkward. And then like Pastor Joe was saying, you got to answer to your kids. Hey Dad, what's this? I don't know. Hey Dad, what's this? Why are we doing that?
Right.
According to this website, that's supposedly the thing to do, and you have to go and look in the mirror soberly as men and women and say, am I doing what the Bible says or doing what this website says? And all too often
Mhm.
it was what the website said.
Yeah,
So
according to Judaism, who copied it from the Greek Symposium, according to them, this is what we're supposed to do.
all right.
Yeah.
Wrong. Let's not do that.
Yep.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, and then I think the other part is just like, I don't know, like looking at what Passover is and how important it, of a feast day it is. It's literally the first one. It's like this is how you get your feast days kicked off for the year.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
So let's
Yes.
mess that up, right? And then replace it with a whole nother holiday.
All right. Question.
All right, answer.
For anyone listening to this, hopefully this will make sense. I'm gonna ask you guys, if you were to eat a meal on December 13th and it consisted of lamb, bitter herbs, unleavened bread, and wine, what would you call that meal?
Good.
Dinner, supper? It wouldn't have a special name like Passover meal, right?
Right.
When can you eat the Passover meal?
On the 14th day of the first month.
Only on Passover, right? Otherwise,
At
it's just
twilight.
lamb, unleavened bread, bitter herbs, and wine. That's all.
Right.
It's just
That's
dinner.
it.
Yeah.
So when Yeshua says that they're preparing and eating the Passover meal, that is exactly what they are doing.
Yep.
I don't see how there's any way else we can look at that.
Right. Exactly.
Then what were the Jews doing? The wrong thing.
Yeah.
The wrong thing at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Guess what? In the provisions that the Father makes, you guys know this. If you miss the first Passover because of something, whatever
Right.
comes up,
Yep.
Yeah.
the Father's even cool about going, hey, you missed the first one. I'm going to give you a second chance
Give you an opportunity for a
to
second one.
get it right. Because like you said, Jonathan, it's the head. It literally happens. It's the head of the year, the new year.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise!
It's
It's
in the
not
spring
January 1st.
or in the fall. What about in the fall? No,
What
not that
about
one
that? What
either.
about the
No,
fall?
no.
The
There's no
fall
New
of
Year in the
man, the
fall.
fall of. I mean, I'm kidding.
Yeah, let's do 2 New Years.
Right. Well, and so Joe, to your point about the second Passover, that was one of my first kind of arguments to myself. Sometimes I have an inner dialogue and I win every time. But,
Okay.
whenever you're arguing with yourself in your own head or
I
in the
don't
mirror,
always.
Kyle's kicking Kyle's butt, taking him to town.
It
But,
happens.
what other holiday, what other feast day has a number 2? I mean, honestly, think about it. When's there like a backup? You don't have a backup birthday. There's no backup Christmas. There's no backup atonement. It's, hey, there's Passover, and it might be important if God's like, I didn't want you to miss it. And if you happen to miss it, here's another one because it's so
Right.
important. I
Yeah.
literally doubled down on the important to make sure you don't miss it. Like that was one of my, again, internal dialogues of like, okay, wait a second. If there's 2, God's like, hey man, I really want you to do this. And if you just happen to miss it, like let's say you're in the hospital because you blew your leg up. Hey, you know what? A month later, handle your business because you got to make sure you do this Passover. And I was like, man, talk about important. It blew my mind thinking about the concept of that. We don't do that with anything else, but God's like, Passover though?
Mm-hmm.
Passover
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Just 2.
And I think it's neat too that's kind of the one that's should be kept in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it kind of sets the whole precedent for you, your household, your family, and what you're going to stand on for the year, right? And then the rest are either community or back then at the temple or tabernacle or whatever. I think that's really cool. Like your walk, it's a great reminder that your faith and your walk begins at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? It begins with you, and it begins, well, obviously it begins with the Father and the Son, but but as far as your effort that you're putting into it and into obedience, it begins with you. It begins with your household and what you're going to stand on. So
Right.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
that's super important that
Well,
is set up the way that it is. God has a great purpose for all that. I just
yeah.
wish we had a second Sukkot, man. I keep pushing for this idea that we have a half Sukkot. Nobody's taken me up on that yet, but hey, I think we ought to figure out a way to have a
There you
half
go.
Sukkot.
Feast of Tabernacles.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
But
Yeah.
you guys know, as we were speaking about that, it was about 4 or 5 years ago now. Father said he just spoke to a lot of us and said, "Hey, by the way, when you're talking about Cal going back to your homes, yeah, guys. I mean, that was something that was. I think that was a very good shift. That was something that Abba was like, hey, you know what? This is very important, Jonathan. You said, hey, you missed the first one, catch the second one. This is important."
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think there's something very significant to, hey, go back to it's like going back to the original store because that's where everybody was right before they left Egypt.
Right.
They didn't have like this big, hey, we're all going to meet at the town hall and go, have this gigantic get together. No, this was about, the families and it did say if you had extra share, hey, you got some extra lamb, and that family that don't have enough share,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, there's something very, I think, significant about that. The father's saying it about 4 or 5 years, like, hey, you know what? These large, I think you maybe guys, what do you think? I think sometimes you lose the intimacy because some of the guys, some of the big hitters out there, they're doing like 500 to 700 people.
Yeah.
I don't know how you have an intimate time with you and the father and your family with 700 people.
Right.
And I think you kind of lose some of that. I feel like there's too much into the production
Right.
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
putting
Well,
that on. It's like, and I don't think God's like, hey, I don't want you doing a production. I want you to really grasp what this is. And anyway, that's my thoughts on it, guys. Where I was like, I just think that he's trying to bring us back around to really focusing on back on the Father.
Yep.
What you got,
Ooh,
Kyle?
I got one more. And this goes back into the tradition that Judaism keeps when it comes to Passover, man. But first, I bet you there's some Egyptians in Sheol right now wishing there was a second Passover during that
Oh
first
boy.
Passover.
Oh boy.
You don't got none left. No, they burnt it
No
all that night.
fair.
They said
Oh
leave
boy.
nothing for the Egyptians. Burn it all.
Um, but anyway, I digress. No, what I was gonna say was, did y'all ever do did y'all ever do in the going and opening the door to see if Elijah was there or any of that kind of stuff?
I didn't do that part.
I ain't gonna lie. We didn't open the door, but we would put out a plate for Elijah just in case he showed up.
Okay, well
Here I am.
that one year that we were kind of thinking that we were gonna do the whole Seder thing and just kind of just was like, nah, we're not doing this. The big crux of that whole thing is like, all right, well, I'll go do this one little silly little thing. And I went and opened that, and I felt like a complete idiot the whole time I was doing it too, And I walked to the front door, and I'm like, I'm speaking to myself. I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. And I go and open the door and look around, and shut the door. And I'm like, I am never doing this dumb thing again.
Wow.
This is just ridiculous.
Well, thankfully you opened the door. There wasn't some other type of entity staring back at you, going, "Hey,
Bro, if there was somebody standing there, they'd have caught a few rounds. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You did have a plate, so
look, if
What
you
at least
are you
one
shooting?
round.
I
if you
swear."
Jesus or Elijah, you can take a bullet.
There you go. Yeah, they'd be like,
But
"I'm sorry, my car broke up down up the road here, and I was coming in and getting to use your phone."
My name's Elijah. Is that okay?
That would be funny.
That would be.
That would be hilarious. Yeah.
can you
Have you heard
imagine?
about the
I
Church of
saw a
Latter Day
light on at
Saints?
your home, and I thought I'd come and get some help. Yeah.
Well,
Be an
so
odd time for Jehovah's Witness to show up, right?
exactly. Hi, name's Elijah.
Well, you know what? If he did, there's a good chance his name is Elijah.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. That's why it's funny.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
you know,
You know
that
what's
would be
funny
some
though?
good marketing for them to go to the
Yeah.
Jewish households.
Everybody, you got to pick the right calendar. So that's the first debate, and then
You know what? We should do that. Just randomly pick someone's house like that and show up and go, I heard you had a plate of food here for me.
How funny would that be?
Oh yeah.
but right on their doorstep, Elijah was here.
Came by, you weren't here. You didn't answer the door.
You took too
Oh,
long.
boy.
I got other houses to go to. You just missed me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right, so I did have one question for you guys. So
Okay.
I'm looking through the New Testament, and it's always, it's talking about leaven, and it says, remove the leaven out of our lives, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, leaven is sin. What in the world is sin bread? Because I got to get rid of all the sin bread. I don't know what that is. Can you guys help me out a little bit? I'm struggling. What in
It's
the
made
world?
by sunbeam bread. It's called sin bread.
If leaven is sin, how do I got to remove all the sin bread?
Well, I mean, I think in its simplest form, I think there's a lot we can dive in here too. But the symbolism there is puffing up,
Mhm.
reference to pride, that kind of thing, and kind of the downfall of most men goes to that one thing, pride. So I don't know. I think that's my simplest version of that I can give you.
Here's a question for both you guys also. Is there really, during that time of the story of Exodus, when they were told not to make the cakes with leaven before they left, right? So non-leaven cakes, hey, it's quick because you're getting ready to roll out. Help me with this, because maybe I'm missing something, but where is there sin involved in that?
Yeah,
Is that
there's
not kind of the same question you were asking there, Jonathan?
yeah. No, I don't think there's any sin directly in that. I mean, obviously, I was speaking a little tongue in cheek, but the process there
You can't
of
speak that way with me. You know how I am.
I did get it the first time around. Joe was here. But no, when we look at the leaven, it talks about a little bit of leaven leavens the whole batch. So
Right.
it's just like the sin in our life. A little bit of sin can
Right.
ruin the whole human. One bad apple ruins the whole bunch. That same concept and idiom we've talked about, all throughout. And so it's interesting that they use that correlation, but obviously for the original people doing the original Passover, they was like, hey, you just don't have time to let your bread rise, so just make yourself some flatbread and call it a day.
Yeah.
And so that's where that tradition kind of comes in, but it's not tradition because it's biblical. It's saying, hey,
Right.
now you forever after this unleavened bread for 7 days. And so it's a fun process of we get that symbolism in our household where we're like, hey, if you have leaven in your house, we'll get that out, because that's the idea of you're starting your new year. Don't start off with sin in your life. Don't start off with a bunch of negativity. Don't start off with a bunch of huge problems. And if it is truly a little bit of leaven, and that's all it takes, well, yeah, there's some introspection to do there. And I just thought it was hilarious / interesting that it's like, hey, out of all the people in the Bible, it's like, beware of the leaven of Pharisees. It's like, if you want to see something where a little bit has leavened the whole bunch, the Pharisee system has got that all over it. So yeah, when we're getting our unleavened bread, I know it's always that fun little task of going around the house and trying to find all the leaven that you always forget somehow, that there's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that bread in the back, or I forgot about the Fleischmann's, activated yeast or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think that we can even dive into it even further, and that is, if we think about the process that they had to go through to make bread,
Yeah,
right?
they,
You've
they
got.
needed to do a lot.
I like what you did there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, making bread is a long process, and then the part that involves the leaven, right? You got to wait for it to rise and all this stuff. You let it set, you let it rise, wait for it to rise, all that. So during that process, you're just kind of sitting around doing nothing.
Mm.
And I think there's some significance to that we can look at. If we look at what we're supposed to be doing with the sin in our lives, we're supposed to be repenting, meaning turning away from that, right? Getting that leaven out of our lives, getting that sin, any aspect of it, because it's going to make everything else not be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get as much sin out of your life as you can, all of it if possible, right? So it doesn't affect other areas of your life and make you sin in another area.
Tell me your ways, Kyle. How do you do that?
He's still
I
figuring it
start in
out,
my
man.
pantry, but I guess my point is if you're just I don't know, maybe a silly thought, but I mean, if you're taking the time to be doing that, to do that whole process, how much time are you taking away from sitting down and just being quiet with the Father and letting Him reveal to you what areas need to be removed from your life? And I think we can see a lot of significance if we try to, if we prepare ourselves in the way that we would have to prepare the bread and the process that we would have to go through. I think we could see a lot more about how we're supposed to act during that time frame. And while I know we are supposed to eat unleavened bread, I'm pretty sure the Father cares more about us removing the sin out of our lives than He is about getting your Wonder Bread out of your pantry. But hey, do those things, but be quick about it. If you miss something, who cares? Spend the time focused on what do you need to address in your life to get right with the Most High. Like, what do you need to do to be able to be in His presence? You got to be clean to be in His presence. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
I guess
this kind of goes back to my question earlier: is what does this have to do with the Passover?
what does
Where
what
is
happen
it
to the Passover?
commanded that we're getting the leaven out of our home because of sin?
I
Or
think
the
it's just used as
Oh,
an idiom later in the New Testament as an example.
yeah,
right?
I think there's a lot of things that they didn't realize why they were doing what they were doing that
Mm-hmm.
happened during that first Passover. Right? The blood on the door, They knew that it was to keep the death angel from, whatever.
That's correct.
But do
I
they
guess.
understand the ultimate significance of that?
But I guess my question is this: since we're having this open conversation, is what are we inferring something about the leaven, or is it just the Passover story of them getting the leaven out because they need to be able to get down the road and they won't be tempted to make regular bread? So my question is this a tradition that we've added into this of getting the leaven out of our own hearts? I'm not saying it's bad, but at the same time, is that really truly part of the story? Or was the fact you're getting out of Dodge and you need to make unleavened cakes and get out?
Okay.
That's my point I was trying to make earlier. Is like I'm just curious because it's real easy to start a tradition of something and then say, oh, well, it's because of this. Well, at the
Right.
end of the day, leaven in bread is a good thing. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you're making bread, if you're making bread that needs to rise, leaven is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now if we're talking about sin rising up in our lives, that's a bad thing, of course.
Of course.
But are we connecting this back to the Passover? Is this something someone said, oh, well, because of the Pharisees and a little bit of the leaven and all that stuff spoils the whole loaf and all this stuff. It's like, are we
Hmm.
now conjecturing something into the story that's not there? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Well,
Hot
we
take.
are later told to keep to do this in remembrance, right? In
Right.
remembrance of what? So I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot to it that we can apply to that now. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
But we'll
currently that
do.
we have the scriptures to look at and be able to see that. But in history past, there could have been quite a bit of time go by where people didn't realize why they were doing what they were doing potentially.
Yeah, but what if the doing was just for the sake of you're just literally imitating what they did? Guys, like, hey, I don't want you to forget the story. So you're
Hmm.
gonna walk certain things out that are just to happen just like that. So you are remembering that for the 7 days that they did not eat unleavened bread. Or
Okay.
they did eat unleavened bread for the next 7 days. So I wonder if that's it. And then later on, we've injected it because of who we're real easy. We do that very easily. We inject stuff into things.
Yeah.
And so that's where,
Yeah.
for me, that's where I'm looking into something going, is it really about sin? Or is it just God says, hey, I want you to remember exactly what happened here to the point of you're going to eat this so that for the next 7 days, you're remembering the story. That's it. I don't know if it's necessarily about sin
Yeah. Yeah.
or if we just made it about sin later down the road.
Well, humans, especially religious humans, love to make connections and
Yeah.
correlations, and so I think there's a potential there for you to be right, and I'm not saying that you're right or wrong. I like the hot takes. I like where we got to go back and dig in the word and say, hey, let's find where in the original Passover sin was brought up in the fact of unleavened or leavening. Let's bring up the second Passover, and then later all throughout the Kings and the Chronicles, and throughout the Old Testament, is anywhere where sin's directly called leaven. And then, yeah, to your point there, if it's not a direct correlation, it could be a good connection that we make to help, understand the process. But yeah, I love when you ask questions like that because, now we all got to go home and do some homework and
Yeah,
go make sure.
absolutely.
And if you're wrong, you're wrong. That's okay.
Yeah.
My personal opinion on this, and I trust me, I know you asked it a couple of times, and I do see where you're coming from. I totally get that. Um, I think if one were to read the scriptures exactly for what they are saying and nothing more, I don't think that
Mhm.
you can get anything out of it other than don't eat bread with leaven in it.
Mhm.
Right? There's no connection to anything else from that standpoint, from that commandment or whatever. Now, fast forward to now, we have all the scriptures that we have available to us, and we have all the connections that can be made. And most importantly, and I think this is the thing here, this is the key here, is someone who seeks the heart of the Father. I think it's real easy for them to make those connections and see that, yeah, maybe there is some relevance to this that has more of a how does this apply to my life kind of thing than just a matter of getting, the Wonder Bread out of the pantry. Because it doesn't just the commandment to eat unleavened bread. It's not just a commandment to eat unleavened bread when we're given the commandments on how to keep Passover. It's to remove the leaven from your house. So that's kind of a weird commandment. It,
I
it, it
don't.
doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to anyone who's not seeking the heart of the Father. To be quite honest with you, if there's not a spiritual significance to this, if there's not a righteous significance to this, it's kind of dumb. It doesn't make any sense, but his ways are not my ways. His ways are
No.
far greater. So, I mean,
If well,
is
here's
it an
here.
assumption? Sure, but I think it's a very good, wise assumption to make that
Right.
there is application for this to mean something other than just, hey, throw the Wonder Bread out.
Well, I think what it does, Kyle, is it removes the temptation to make bread.
Hmm.
I mean, and then I think he's almost
But
like
why? Like, it doesn't make sense.
for them it did, because they're getting ready to go on a journey that they have no idea exactly. I don't think they had a full, hey, by the way, this is what's going to happen. Bam, 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 bam. All they were told was, hey, don't make bread with leaven in it, and you rolling out. That's it. So on the journey, we're going to make this real simple so that we're not getting held up. We're not getting things getting stupid. You're going to make unleavened bread for the practicality of we're on a journey and we need to keep moving.
I have a question.
Sure.
Was the manna from heaven ready to eat bread, or did they have to bake it?
I think they said it was ready to eat, but then they could also use it and make like stuff with it. But I think
Okay.
there was times when they just ate it.
Because I'm just curious. I mean, if it was a doughy type thing, then could they have mixed their own leaven with the manna and made something that Yah didn't think that would have been an abomination, or Yah wouldn't have approved of? I don't know. Just a weird,
Yeah,
side thought there.
Could have
yeah, I
been.
don't know.
Maybe that's why he said no. Don't even bring any with you.
Yeah.
Well, I
Get rid of
mean,
it. Get it out of your house.
Well,
remember too, I mean, people were girding up their loins and had their staff in their hands. So, and
right.
I talked about this in one of my past teachings. Like, hey, if you want to reenact that, go for it. I have a couple that I'm friends with that every year for Passover, they love doing that part of the story and stand there with the staff in there. Hey, if that's your deal, to go for it.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, I think and there's like to what you guys are saying. There's a lot to the story that's more than just leaven, unleaven. Paint the doorpost red with the blood. There's a lot more going on. And at the time, like Pastor Joe was saying, they don't know why they're being told to do. There's no, if we mess this up, we're dead. That's
Yeah.
all they know. Don't mess this up. And I think we look at God's commands today as like options or suggestions. They
Right.
looked at that as, if I don't do this exactly what he said, I'm gonna be all the way dead, or my
Yeah.
kid, or my dad, or somebody in my house is gonna be dead.
Right. Whether
Um,
you understand it or not, just
Right.
do
exactly.
it.
Yeah, there was no. Let's make sure we have a theological debate over it, and go over the analytics of what kind of Hebrew they're using. It's, hey, you do what I say, or don't make it. And so, yeah, there's a lot they didn't understand. Get the leaven out. I'm pretty sure it was because they were traveling. You just got to get your, like even when you watch survival shows, what do they always have? Tortillas. You know what I mean? Because they stay fresh for a long time. They
Mm-hmm.
carry a long way. They don't
Mhm.
weigh a lot. They're flat, and they
Mm-hmm.
fill you up almost the same as what bread would. There's just no holes in it.
Yeah.
And same thing with, why do they eat that much that night? Eat so much lamb that you're done. And then
Hmm.
if you happen to be done, eat a little bit more. And then when you're done, throw the rest in the fire and burn it up.
Yep.
So why
Well, we
why
don't want to
eat?
waste any, so we better eat as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
does this command to them means what? Hey, gird your loins, get your staff, and be ready. Ready for what? Like, what do you mean? They didn't know they were crossing a water lake sea thing. They were like, that wasn't an option. You know what I mean? They were like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean? We're gonna walk till when? For 40 years? They're like, yeah. For the first part of the journey, eat all you can eat, because you're not gonna have time to do this again for a little bit. You're not gonna set up your first camp till you get on the other side of the water. There was no tabernacle on the left side. There was only tabernacle on the right side. So they had to figure that whole first part out with no food, no shelter, just, hey, we're out here. We're just following God's command. We're following a cloud or some fire. And so I think that, like the part of the understanding is, yeah, they didn't get in, they didn't understand half of it. They just knew, we follow God and we do what he says. We follow Moses because he listens to God and he does what he says. And so what was the purpose of the leaven? They just didn't have time to make bread. And I think that
Yep.
it's
Maybe.
more of the simple side of it. And I think along the way, Yeshua's always using stuff and examples in Paul. They're like, let's talk about the fig tree. Let's talk about the leaven. Let's talk about, the creation. Let's talk about the way the water flows. Let's talk about all the, look at Job. He's talking about earth being pressed like a seal and all this stuff. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
is he talking like what I think he's saying? Is
Mm-hmm.
leaven actually talking about sin? And he's like, no, man, it's more of an example. We're talking about how that, when something gets inside of you, it festers up and it turns into, it could be a problem. Like even your yeast, if you put it in some bread, that's gonna bubble over. Your little bowl will be spilling out everywhere. And it's like, hey, you got to make sure you keep it under control, even in a positive light. So yeah, what is it talking about? I think the original story is just, hey, just make flatbread, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then later it's like, hey, this was a pretty good example. I'm going to use this for another purpose. It was never a sin originally, but it was a great example to use later.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were given that initial command there, and then they were given more details about keeping it later on, at the mountain, all that kind of good stuff,
Mhm.
So I don't know. I do think for the initial one, I think y'all are right. I think it doesn't matter what it's about. It's just do it, and that's it. I do still think that we can see some spiritual significance in it later on. I mean,
Mhm.
my goodness, I mean, nothing's ever mentioned about this. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say this, but I mean, I think that there's a spiritual significance to consume as much of the lamb as you can. Think about that for a minute. Get as much of the lamb in you as you
I
can.
thought about it too long.
Who's a reference of the lamb, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I think there can be more to it, and I also think at the same time that we can definitely over spiritualize things, and we can
Yeah.
overdo stuff,
Yeah.
and. So with all this stuff we've been talking about, it seems like kind of the major gist of what we've been getting at today is just kind of know why you do what you do, right?
Mhm.
And also you should know that flour tortillas are awesome during unleavened bread. So have tacos for a week. See you back.
Ciao.
Well.